Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh. It is November 27th, 2022. I am Erica Shadowsong, a staff member of this church. I am 5'8" with brown skin. I'm wearing a black shirt and a white head covering. I am 43. And with me today is guest speaker, Miguel Sague. Sorry, thank you. Miguel Sague, Jr. Our minister, Reverend Kate, is off today. We are so glad that you've chosen to be here with us this morning. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome. We are working for justice wherever the heavy weight of oppression has dug into the fabric of life. I am live in our sanctuary along with some who are in person and those who are on YouTube. I have with me today volunteers and staff all working to bring this worship to you. On behalf of this team, I thank you for being with us. If this is your first time with us, we would love to be in touch with you. If you've not already done so, please go to our welcome desk in the atrium, or if you're on YouTube, visit our website, just Google First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh, and sign up for our weekly newsletter found at the bottom of the page. You are also invited to join us for a social time on Zoom following this live worship. To get a Zoom link, please send an email to firstunitarianpittsburgh@gmail.com, and you will be sent a link. I invite everyone to take a deep breath. Arrive in body and spirit, and picture your connection to all other beings and to all others who are watching us today and in the future. Now we're going to have a land acknowledgement.
Our church stands on land that has been the home of indigenous people since at least 15,000 years ago. More recently, this territory was under the stewardship of a nation who called themselves the Onondaga. Our world knows them as the Seneca. They belong to a 5 Iroquoian language native nation confederacy called the Haudenosaunee, the Longhouse people. From the area now occupied by the town of Sharpsburg in Chief Goyasuta's village, all the way north along the Allegheny River, past Chief Corn Planter's village of Genushendango, all the way across the border into New York State. The Senecas controlled all of western Pennsylvania. They protected 2 other tribes who had immigrated into their territory, the non-Iroquoian Shawnees and the Lenape, or Delaware. The European-American expansion into western Pennsylvania dispossessed the Seneca and their allies of most of their territory here, and they were all confined into tiny reservations where they live to this day. It is important to understand the legacy of the native people from whom this land was taken and respect the memory of their history and the links to this land. We turn to our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. If you have a chalice at home, we invite you to light it at this time. We light this chalice in the name of the traditions of Thanksgiving that we all share. May this flame burn bright in your heart and mind as we worship together. We also have a reading for Advent by David Brendan. Advent, Adventus, means waiting, and the holiday season is nothing if not waiting. To get the chores, to find the right gift, to find time for quiet moments, to accept that our loved ones will not be as we wish them to be. We will light the chalice this holiday season, this time of waiting, to remind ourselves to enjoy the moment, the now, of our lives. Yes, much is coming, and always we wait, but those things to come will also be now when they come. For the first Sunday of Advent, this first Sunday reminds us to be patient. In this holiday season, may we find the patience to forgive ourselves, to forgive those who do not do as we wish. May we find patience. May we find the wisdom to let be.
Good morning. So now we will greet the world around us, the nature that's all around us, Mother Earth and Father Sky. The words that I'm going to ask you to sing with me are Taino words, the ancient people of the Caribbean. Would you say with me, Kane Ata? Kane Ata. Ata is Mother Earth, the mother. And the word Kane means in your temple. And so we are greeting Mother Earth and her temple, and which includes everything that's standing on the earth, including us. And then we greet Father Sky, Baba. Say, Baba. Kane Baba. Good. So, to Mother Earth, Ae a Kane Ata. Try it. Ae a Kane Ata. And to Father Sky, Ae a Kane Baba. Yeah, pretty simple. So now, Miguel is going to lead us through the ritual where we address all four directions. We will start all facing center, and then you can follow me. We will all turn and we will face south, and then we will turn and we will face west, then we will turn and we will face north, then we will turn and we will face east, and then we will turn back center. Miguel has other incantations, invocations that he offers as part of this ritual, addressing the birds, both of the ground, like turkey, and the sky, like the eagle's one of them, yeah? Hawk. And the hawk. So please join us in this ritual. I ask that you please stand. Ae a Kane Ata. Kane Baba, Kane Baba. Ae a Kane Baba. Baba, Kaneata, Kaneata, Aea Kaneata, Kane Baba, Kane Baba, Aea Kane Baba, Ubareito Rakuroai, Aea Kaneata, Ubareito Koliliai, Aea Kane Baba, Kaneata, Kaneata, Aea Kaneata, Kane Baba, Kane Baba, Aea Kane Baba. So I go I Kaneata. What Wonderful. I would invite you to remain standing, and we're going to sing a little bit more Taino. You're doing such a good job with it. I'm going to teach you another couple words, just a very few. Taino ti. Would you say this? Taino. Good. That means in high honor. Waki ata, Mother Earth. Again, waki. Waki ata. Taino ti waki ata. Taino ti waki ata. That's all you have to do. And again, Taino ti waki ata. Taino ti waki ata. Again, Taino ti waki ata. Taino ti waki ata. That's it. Sing it out. Thank you. You may be seated.
If everyone would please join in reading the 8 Universalist principles with me, printed in the order of service. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience, and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and society at large. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions.
I'm going to tell today comes from the Seneca people, who are the people of this land. I have Taino heritage, which is still new to me, but I am not Seneca and do not know inherently the wisdom of this story. But there is a spirit to every story, and the story belongs to this land, and there are spirits of this land, so I hope and invite and ask the spirit of this story to help me tell it and to help us get the wisdom that is in it. I invite you to listen especially to the strangeness, because when you listen to a story from another culture, a lot of times when we haven't changed anything, tried to put our own lens on it, some of it is just kind of strange. And those are the places where I tend to find that there is something there, some kind of wisdom. This story is about the battle between Frost and the Whirlwind. Grandmother Whirlwind was one of the oldest of her people. One of the oldest of her people. She was a family of Whirlwind. And they were feuding with another family, the family of Old Woman Frost. Grandmother Whirlwind had 2 grandchildren, a boy and a girl that she loved very much. One day, she left to go and dig some roots, and Old Woman Frost came creeping to Grandmother Whirlwind's house. She brought with her the cold and the frost, and everything began to freeze, and the icicles appeared on the house. As she entered, she saw the little girl, and she said, "Aren't you a nice little girl?" She grabbed her, and she swallowed her up. The little boy saw what happened, and he was terrified. And she said, "Oh, don't be afraid. Let's go find your grandmother." The little boy knew that she was lying, but he didn't know what to do, so he did what she said. She told him to climb onto her back, so he did. But he stuck, and he hung there, and he hung on so tight that he could not actually let go when he tried. And when he was stuck on Old Woman Frost's back, she said, "We're going to go off and find your grandmother," but she meant to take him back to her home and to her people and eat him too. She walked off into the forest with the boy clinging to her back, but they were going in the opposite direction of his grandmother, and he was scared. And he told her, he said, no, grandmother is that way, grandmother is that way. And she said, no, you'll see, we're going to come upon her any moment now. But he froze and he hung on, and after a while he was crying and crying, "Grandmother, come save me." Old Woman Frost did not like the sound of him crying. She was tired of him clinging to her back, and she thought, I might as well just eat him now. So she reached for him and tried to get him, but she couldn't get him. And she reached to the back, she tried to get him, and she couldn't reach him, and he was just clinging to her back. So then she tried to bite over her shoulder, and she couldn't reach him with her mouth either. And then she said, "Get off my back," but he wouldn't, and he realized that he was safe as long as he stuck to her back. So now she was stuck with this little boy, so she kept traveling, and he kept crying. And every once in a while, she would stop, and she would try to shake him off her back. And she would rub him against a hickory tree, but then he would just say, "Thank you for scratching my back. That feels good. Rub harder." So she got really annoyed. She gave up, and then she would keep traveling. Meanwhile, Grandmother Whirlwind came back to the house to find her grandchildren gone. She ran outside, frightened, and she saw the tracks left by Old Woman Frost. And in a fury and fear, she transformed into the whirlwind and took off after the tracks to find Old Woman Frost. And she called to her grandson, "Grandson, grandson!" Old Woman Frost looked out on the horizon from where she had come, and she heard first, the sound of Grandmother Whirlwind coming to get her. And then she saw the dark cloud of the whirlwind, and she said, "Shh, shh. Don't say anything. She's going to hurt us both." But the grandson knew that his grandmother could control herself, and he was not afraid. He trusted her, so he called out, "Grandmother, I'm over here." She said, "Shh, be quiet." And she looked for a place to hide. Old Woman Frost found a ravine, and she dug a hole under the earth, and she hid herself, and she covered her cold self in the earth. And the grandson was there, and he was still clinging to her back. Grandmother Whirlwind came where the tracks had ended, and she said, Are you here, grandson?" He said, I'm here. And Old Woman Frost said, "Don't say anything, shh." But Grandmother Whirlwind found them, and she blew flew in a fury, picked up pieces of the earth, flying them around. She tore apart the earth until she uncovered Old Woman Frost. And then she said, "Grandson, get off of his back!" And he let go and was suddenly able to fall. And he rolled away to safety. Now there began a great fight between Grandmother Whirlwind and Old Woman Frost. But Grandmother Whirlwind was powerful, and she blew her to the ground, and she fell dead for now. Grandmother Whirlwind hugged her grandson, and she said, "Now we have to get your sister out of there." And he said, "How are we going to do that?" And she said, "Watch." She built a fire, and she began to smoke and burn tobacco, and she chanted words that meant this is what we like, this is what we like. And she pushed the smoke over the body of Old Woman Frost. But it didn't happen, nothing came. She could hear her granddaughter crying in there, but she wouldn't come out. And the grandson said, "What are we gonna do if she's not coming out?" She said, "No, that's okay. We have many, many members of the Whirlwind family. We're going to call all of our relatives to come and help us. We're going to call our uncles and our aunts and our cousins and our other grandmothers and grandfathers." And so she called all of her relatives by name. And one by one, each member of the Whirlwind family came, and they built a greater fire. And they walked around the fire, and each of them threw some tobacco in, and they chanted, this is what we like. This is what we like. And when the last person had thrown his tobacco into the fire, the girl popped out of Old Woman Frost. And she said, "How long have I been in there?" She was really weak and really, really cold. So her relatives told her, "Breathe the smoke, breathe the smoke." And she breathed the tobacco in. And she was well again and whole. And now the family left. They went back to their home. And on their way, Grandmother Whirlwind said to her grandson and her granddaughter, "Don't ever let anyone abuse you that way again. You are of the Whirlwind family, and you have the power to conquer anything if you take it." Interesting story, right? I invite everybody to sing the song for our children. We're not going to be leaving today to go to our different classes, but we're going to sing the song anyway. Thank you.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Every month, we share our generosity with a designated organization. This month, it is the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, a wonderful organization dedicated to international advocacy and religious and regional partnership for those impacted by climate crisis, poverty, and war. All donations are shared 50-50 with this organization, unless otherwise designated. Our religious community is made up of volunteers and staff creating and hosting a variety of programming. We rely on your financial support. In addition to the collection plate, you can donate by texting GIVE to 412-435-1050 and following the directions. Please see the order of service for additional options. And thank you again for your generosity.
Sale, loco de contento con su cargamento para la ciudad, sí, para la ciudad. Lleva en su pensamiento todo mundo lleno de felicidad, sí, de felicidad. Piensa en remediar la situación del hogar que es toda su ilusión, sí, y alegre el jibarito va cantando así, diciendo así, soñando así por el camino. Si yo vendo la carga, mi Dios querido, un traje a mi viejita voy a comprar. Y alegre también su yegua va al presentir que su cantar es todo un himno de alegría. En eso le sorprende la luz del día y llegan al mercado de la ciudad. Pasa la mañana entera sin que nadie quiera su carga a comprar, ay, su carga a comprar. Todo está desierto, el mundo está muerto de necesidad, ay, de necesidad. Si oyen los lamentos por doquier de mi desdichada Borinquen, sí, y triste el jibarito va cantando así, diciendo así, llorando así por el camino. ¿Qué será de mi islita, mi Dios querido? ¿Qué será de mis hijos y de mi hogar? Borinquen, la tierra del Edén, la que al cantar el gran Gautier llamó la perla de los mares. Ahora que tú te mueres con tus pesares, déjame que te cante yo también, yo también.
We hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows. We send healing thoughts to Ward Kelsey, who is recuperating at home and is on IV antibiotics for the next several weeks. We share the joy of Nancy Latimer's sister, Sue Donahue, and her longtime boyfriend, Michael Flanagan, who got married unexpectedly last Thursday at the courthouse in Germantown, Maryland. Congratulations to the newlyweds. We remember those who are experiencing losses of various kinds and those facing health challenges. We are aware that many are faced with heightened difficulties presented by these times that continue to be challenging for all. May we find joy in our connections with each other and the pleasures that life holds. Let us continue to care for one another and ourselves in all the ways we can. We hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows, whether spoken or unspoken. Let us take a moment to be quiet together.
Greetings. My name is Miguel Sague. I'm descended from the original indigenous people of the Caribbean islands who welcomed Christopher Columbus to our region in 1492. And I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is the original region of the Seneca people. And I'm going to address a subject that is actually complicated. It is not an easy subject for us indigenous people to address. There's a great deal of conflict and lack of agreement on this subject, and that's the subject of Thanksgiving. In the mythical, legendary tradition of the United States, Thanksgiving evokes feelings of friendship and love between two people, the original indigenous people of New England and the new people that had just arrived there and established their settlement, the Pilgrims, who came from England. The Pilgrims, as those of you who know anything about that period of time, that history, were fleeing persecution, religious persecution. They had just, that type of religious thought had just lost essentially a war of thought, a war of ideas in England. And England had gone back to its original, more traditional, hierarchical way of religion, which the Pilgrims did not agree with, the Pilgrims of the Puritans. So they felt persecuted and they left and they came here to the Americas, to North America, and settled in New England. And of course they met people there. There were people already living there. It wasn't an empty land. And it's interesting because the people of that area greeted them with friendship and welcoming, just like my people greeted Christopher Columbus several years earlier in the Caribbean. And my ancestors, what we got back from Christopher Columbus was slavery, oppression, and near extinction. And unfortunately, what happened in New England was pretty much the same. That first winter that the Pilgrims suffered, almost starved in their Plymouth colony, the native people of that area came and helped them and fed them so that they could survive that first winter. Otherwise, they would have been wiped out. And ironically, it was a native man from that region who, because he had actually, ironically, he had actually spent some time in England as a slave. He could speak English. And the way that he responded to that horrible experience, once he had escaped and come back to his own land, instead of returning that with hatred, he returned it with love. These English people who had enslaved them, he helped them to survive. So that's the reality of the history. And that is the way the myth wants it to stay. But unfortunately, it did not stay that way. In fact, once the Pilgrims and then the Puritans who came right after that became strong enough in their colony, they turned on the indigenous people of New England, just as the Spanish had turned on my people several years earlier in the Caribbean. And it was history repeating itself. The wars between the indigenous people of New England and the English colonists culminated in the 1600s when a group of Puritans attacked a palisaded town of Pequot, the Pequot people. Their town, these people didn't live in teepees like, the stereotypical native people that most people think of. They lived in bark-covered wigwams. These were sturdy structures made out of bark and wood. And there was a palisade all around, like a fence of logs to protect the town. And what the Puritans did is they surrounded the town, and they were able to put gunpowder leading into the town, and they set the place on fire. So that men, women, and children began streaming out of the town, and as they came out the palisades, they were shot dead with the guns, because they had gun. The Puritans had guns, and so they killed several hundred people. I think it was between 400 to 700 people, men, women, and children. And in their own records, the Puritans wrote everything down. They recorded everything down. And they said only 5 of them survived. And the way that they said that this was okay, they went biblical. They said, in the Bible we found that if a people deserve to be extinguished, exterminated, they can be exterminated, men, women, and children. They found that in the Old Testament. So I said, it's okay for us to do that. You can find this all, you can look it up yourself, and you can actually see the writings of these murderers as they try to justify their actions. So I tell you that story to explain to you why there is such strong sentiment among many Native Americans about Thanksgiving. This holiday is perceived by many Native Americans as a day of mourning, not a day of Thanksgiving. There is nothing, they don't see anything to thank. They don't see any reason to be thankful for on that day. They only see war, murder, extinction, oppression, slavery. That's all they see associated with that. Now, why is this complicated? Right there, I could stop right there and say, well, that's the end of that. And we'll go with the way a lot of my Native American brothers and sisters. And I could just end it there. But for me, it's a lot more complicated than that. It's not that simple. Because you see, unlike the myth, we were not taught how to say thanks by a bunch of people coming from across the ocean. We already knew how to do that. We had our own harvest festivals in the fall when we gave thanks to the Great Spirit for the bounty of the harvest. So, in my mind, to completely turn my back on expressions of thanksgiving in the fall is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I don't understand that. I know that essentially I'm going against the opinion of many of my Native American brothers and sisters. To them, it's a clear-cut case. No Thanksgiving. Forget it. No turkey, no nothing. On that day, we're going to mourn. For me, it's more nuanced than that. It's more complicated. It's more complex. Yes, I recognize that. Yes, I understand that. Yes, I see their point. However, the people of this area, the Seneca, had a tradition of a long prayer in which there was a key term in their language that was repeated over and over again. I'm going to teach you that, and I hope you remember that and take it home with you to your home whenever you think of Thanksgiving. And that word is niawe. That is the Seneca word for thank you. Niawe, niawe, niawe. In this long prayer, which is called the Thanksgiving Address. Yeah, that's what it's called. And it was being done here in Western Pennsylvania long before any pilgrims or Puritans or anybody else had come over. They were saying Yahweh in the fall because these were farming people. These were people that planted in the spring, grew corn, beans, and squash, and then harvested it in the fall. And then it was time to say Yahweh. And nobody came from England or London to tell them how to say it. They already knew how to say it. They had their own word for it. And they ate turkey and they ate pumpkin. Before those other people dressed in their black hats with their white collars and their leather belts came over to tell them, well, this is the way we say thank you to God. Well, thank you very much, but we already have a way of saying thank you. And we've been eating turkeys long before you even knew they existed. So that's why it's complicated for me. That's why I have that quandary. I belong to the Council of Three Rivers American Indian Center here in Pennsylvania, and last weekend they celebrated their harvest festival, and they call it that on purpose. They avoid the word Thanksgiving. It was wonderful. Unfortunately, I missed it. I had things that I had to do. It was Saturday. But they had a wonderful harvest festival, and people brought in covered dishes, and I know there was turkey there. And I know there was pumpkin pie. I know that. I didn't have to be there to know it. And so the main gist of my talk today is to express to you my quandary. Why it is such a complex moment of the year, me living here in the United States, where there's this yearly tradition of sitting down on that Thursday and saying thanks. Because you know what? I want to say thanks. I want to say thanks at harvest time. My people were also traditionally farming people who saw the fall as the beginning. Our harvest time was a lot longer than yours because we have warm weather. So we don't have to deal with snow in the Caribbean. So our harvest time goes deep into the winter. We're still harvesting in January. We're still getting things out of the ground in January and February, okay? But it starts in the fall. It starts at the same time as you here in September. We start harvesting the corn and some of the early crops. So yeah, I want to say thanks. And so I do. Niawe.
Thank you, Miguel, for sharing some of that history and insight. Now it's your turn to respond. You can remain seated, but I'm going to ask that you sit up in your chair a little bit, feel the length of your spine, take a nice deep breath in through your nose. Yeah, and feel the life and energy flowing through your body. And we have now an expression of gratitude. This is a song, Yokahu, which expresses gratitude to Father Sky. These words, Taino words, they're not printed in your order of service. My apologies about that, but they're very simple and few. Please repeat after me. Waki Ababa. So, our Father was Waki Baba. Waki Baba. Waki. Ture Toka. That means most high. Who is in the sky? Right. Ture Toka. Who is in the sky? Yeah. Ture Toka. Gwaki Ababa. Ture Toka. Gwaki Ababa Ture Toka. Gwaki Ababa Ture Toka. Gwaki Ababa Ture Toka. Gwaki Ababa Ture Toka. You've got it. So that's your part, and I'll show you when to sing that. This is Yokahu. You may remain seated, but take nice deep breaths and sing out.
Wakia baba turei toka. Wakia baba turei toka. Wakia baba turei toka. Wakia baba turei toka. Taino ti bomato, wakia baba turei toka. Taino ti bomato, wakia baba turei. Yoka huba wa maora kodi, wakia baba turei toka. Yoka huba wa maora kodi, wakia baba turei toka. Taino ti bomato, wakia baba turei toka. Taino ti bomato, wakia baba turei toka. Agua kakakwa baito kaputo katureito. Agua kakakwa baito kaputo katureito. Tairo ti bomato, wakia baba tureito. Tairo ti bomato, wakia baba tureito. Wariko wakia, musika wakia, para yukumia yukataino. Wariko wakia, musika wakia, para yukumia yukataino. Tairo ti bomato, wakia baba tureito. 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 Yoka huba wa maora kodi, wakia baba tureito. Yoka huba wa maora kodi, wakia baba tureito. Tairo ti bomato, wakia baba tureito. Tairo ti bomato, wakia baba tureito. Agua kakakwa baito kaputo katureito. Agua kakakwa baito kaputo katureito. Tairo ti bomato, wakia baba tureito. Tairo ti bomato, wakia baba tureito. Guajira Babadureitoka. Guajira Babadureitoka. Guajira Babadureitoka. Guajira Babadureitoka.
I just want to say thank you so much to Miguel Sague and all of our guests, our wonderful musicians, for sharing your culture with us. And to those people whose spirits are now with us in this hall after all these years of oppression, that's just very powerful to me. We extinguish this flame of our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Today we send you on your way. May you know the love of family, of friends, and this community. May you know the joy of creation and the power of justice. Return again in love and peace.
I invite the choir to the stage for our postlude, and I'm going to invite you to move your body as you feel fit. This is a well-known Cuban song. Many a night out at the salsa club has heard this. So please move your body, move your hips, move your everything.
Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera. Yo soy un hombre sincero, de donde crece la palma. Yo soy un hombre sincero, de donde crece la palma. Que antes de morir me quiero echar mi verso del alma. Mire, Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera. Con los pobres de la tierra quiero yo mi suerte echar. Con los pobres de la tierra quiero yo mi suerte echar. El arroyo de la sierra que con las aguas del mar. ¡Libro! Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira Guantanamera.
Thank you.